Welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. In the series Freemasonry and Satanism, number 66, part 3. So I think I'll make this the last part of this book. The Life of an American Jew in Israel by Jack Bernstein, as told by Len Martin. Number 66, in my opinion, an ominous number. Maybe not as ominous as 666, the mark of the beast, but nevertheless 66. And I thought I would choose a book that was kind of light on the Zionist question, or as Henry Ford called it, or the U.S. Congress, where they had congressional hearings, the Jewish problem. And the Jewish problem occurred when they started shipping the Yiddish Jewish people from Eastern Europe, Russia, Poland, where the Ukraine is, that whole area, Bohemia, where there is a lot of occult and magic, witchcraft, Kabbalah, some very interesting psychic things. This is the religion of these people. And we've all seen it on the TV shows. Madonna at halftime at football shows, Lady Gaga, the Olympic opening, Katy Perry, football halftime show, riding the big bull, glowing eyes, the big horse on the hind legs at the Colorado airport, the paintings inside the Colorado airport, Miley Cyrus and her little horns, and politicians, Bush, Obama, the Pope even. Everybody's doing the devil sign, even Bush's daughter. And they're doing this, and a lot of people are doing something like this called 666. Even the Pope was doing 2 666s. And they do something like this with their eyes. So they're blatantly showing us this stuff. Promoting a decadent lifestyle. The gay issue. Transgender. It's being thrown right in our faces. And if you're a Christian, or any other religious person with morals and morality, they'll call you a hater. What do they say about the end times? Up will be down and down will be up. 2 plus 2 will be 5, not 4. Everything will be crazy. With that said, I wanted to continue reading from this book, which, as I said a moment ago, I thought I would pick a book that would take me on the lighter side of Zionism. But it's turning out this book is pretty horrible. If it's true what this Jewish man said, who moved from the United States, even served in the U.S. Army before he left, went over there and found out that things are not what they seem. Which I believe a lot of people will probably agree these days. Things are not what they seem. They got this new global one world agenda. Even the Pope is the new Jesuit Pope. The military arm of the Vatican, if you didn't know that. The enforcers. The mafia type priest. Just something to know. But people got to take the time and look this stuff up. I can't read you everything. I'm going to do one more video on a portion of this book. Go buy the book. Read it for yourself. Show it to your friends. Alright, let's start out with page 38. The 1982 invasion of Lebanon. In Israel, most Jews have become tired of Israel's involvement in war and aggressive acts. And they want peace. It is only the communist faction that wants war. Sadly, it is these communists who are in power in Israel. Remember, this was written 1984. When you say communist now, people start giggling because they've been programmed. You mention Illuminati, people start giggling and think you're foolish because they've been programmed. You talk about sky spraying of chemicals that they can look up and take a picture of. They start giggling because they've been programmed. Conspiracy theory, New World Order, New Age. You talk about dumbing down America, the cartoons, the school systems, the media, the TV programming. I think they've accomplished it. Regrettably. But that was in their plans, as we will see when we review some more of the Protocols of Zion. The 1982 attack into Lebanon by Israel further divided the Jewish population of Israel. Even within the more militant Zionist Jew, there is now a split. The reason given by Israeli leaders for the attack into Lebanon was to root out the Palestine Liberation Army, PLO, and to stop their terrorist attacks into Israel. And if we know anything about Israel's tactics, we know that they hire mercenaries to fake the attacks so they can go to war. Many Israelis have dared speak out to condemn this reason as false. They have pointed out that in an effort to achieve peace with Israel, the PLO had, for 11 months, refrained from making any attacks on Israel. I'm not reading everything. This is my highlighted portion. Go buy the book. Give credit where credit's due, and the publishers printed it. It is the intention of Israeli Zionist Marxist leaders to carry on perpetual war. The attack into Lebanon was merely another phase of Israel's war of aggression policy. Water is scarce in the Mideast, especially in Israel. Ever since Israel became a state, it has wanted the waters of the Litani River for use in Israel, and the only way they could get it was to go in and take it militarily. Israeli leaders and the general population figured out that the war would last only a few days. But the Palestinians and other Arabs fought heroically against the Israeli invaders, who had far superior equipment. As the months passed without victory, and as more Israeli soldiers were brought home and buried, dissent within Israel spread. In the Israeli military forces, many members resigned or refused to carry out orders because it would have meant killing innocent citizens. The death of the 250 Marines serving in Lebanon had been blamed on the Arabs. This is as it had been reported by the Zionist-controlled news media in America. But this has not been proven. So the newspapers in the United States, most people are aware, are controlled by these New World Order, Illuminati, banksters, Zionist types. The American people are fed lies and deception and propaganda to discredit and destroy the Christian church and other moral issues, and bringing us forcefully, at the cost of billions of dollars, the homosexual agenda, as well as the transgender and bisexual and adulterous agenda. What's that Ashley Madison website where you can have a discreet affair guaranteed and cheat on your spouse? I think they were in the news recently. Their website was hacked, and somebody had got all the names of the people, and some outrageous number, 1,500 or something, had .gov or something like that on their email addresses, meaning people sitting in government offices were using government computers to get on Ashley Madison website to find somebody to cheat on their spouse with at the government expense. Interesting. In fact, reliable reports coming out of Lebanon indicate that the terrorist attack on the American Marine base was planned by Israel military personnel or the Mossad, Israeli Secret Service. In that case, who actually carried out the attack is immaterial. What I'm trying to say is there's an agenda here, and it's an alternate type of religion than anything that's decent, like Christianity, or even the Muslim religion, or anything. We humans worldwide are under attack, from what's said in this book and the other material I'm going to go over. Israeli personnel planned and instigated the attack. It is common practice for the Zionist Marxists to plan a covert act and then get someone else to do the dirty work, says this Jewish man. And the reason I say it is I've just read it in so many different books, from the couple hundred books that I've read and reviewed, or more, thousands of videos, hundreds of magazines, and thousands of press releases that I have printed out and cataloged, which I shall show you. Going on 11 years. I only wanted to know what the heck is going on in the world. Who's doing it? Which other people have asked me the same thing. Rick, who's behind all this? By instigating the attack on the Marine base, the Israeli warhawks had hoped the attack would turn the American people against the Arabs and that America could be drawn into the war. So the Israeli had the U.S. Marines attacked and killed to stir up patriotism and warmongering among the American people, to further help Israel in its aggression against the Arabs. Fortunately, the American people didn't fall for the trap. A good example of how the Zionists will commit an act of terrorism with the thought of someone else being blamed is the Levon affair. In 1954, a group of Israelis set off a series of bombings of American institutions in Egypt, including the American embassy. They expected that Egypt would be blamed for the bombings and that it would cause a break in U.S.-Egyptian relations. Fortunately, Egyptian authorities caught the Israeli agents in the act of setting one of the bombs, and the whole Israeli plot was exposed. Now, isn't that what happened in 9/11? Didn't they catch those Israelis in white vans with explosive materials and evidence in them? Didn't they capture those Israeli agents on a roof in New Jersey videoing the 911, jumping up and down and celebrating? Some lady across away in another building looked out her window and called the police. Do you see their modus operandi, how they operate? Most Americans are not aware of the treacherous Levin affair because the Zionist-controlled U.S. news media failed to report it, just as they failed to report the facts surrounding the Israeli shelling of the USS Liberty, which we discussed earlier. USS Liberty was a ship with monitoring equipment, monitoring Israel's attack on Egypt. And apparently the Israelis said, we don't need witnesses to what we are doing. So they proceeded to try to sink the USS Liberty, quite viciously, by the way, while the American military men waved flags and jumping up and down and said, hey, we're your friends. And they wanted to blame it on the Egyptians, again, to stir up hatred in America against the Arabs. You see a pattern here? When will Israel stir up another war? 9/11? In 1985 and 1986, this book was written in 1984. I think it's so cool to be able to have investigated for 11 years and go back to these books that I purchased in the last 11 years. I might have bought this one 6 or 7 years ago. Got about 500 of them. And then read and then see where we are today. And there's no doubt it's all happening as told. It is difficult to predict, but it is certain that Israel will cause another war unless the American people learn to act to stop the politicians in Washington from bowing to the American Zionist, people who live here in America who are trying to destroy America. One world order, one world religion. And stop using taxpayers' money to finance Israel's war machine. Weakness in Israel's military, page 41. There is no doubt that Israel has a powerful military force. The base of Israel's military power is the massive amounts of the latest equipment supplied by the United States. Remember, our government is controlled by these Zionist folks, our officials. They put our politicians in place, and those politicians heed what the Zionists tell them and do not listen to what the USA people want and need. The USA people seem to have become the enemy of the government. Jade Helm is a good example of that. The Obama health care bill. You can see what's in the bill after we pass it, said Nancy Pelosi. The Patriot Act, which was passed days or after 9/11. How do you draw up a whole bill in the House of Senate and Representatives, get it signed by the president in days? You can't. FEMA camps being built now, have been built. Government buying hollow point bullets. They're readying themselves for something. Okay. So some weakness in Israel's military. Reason one, because Israel has continuously been involved in war or preparing for war, the cream of Israel's youth are leaving Israel, or they find some excuse not to serve in the armed forces. The Israeli army is too short of manpower that it is openly recruiting homosexuals, of which Israel has an abundant supply. Remember, Israel controls the United States, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument. And if you've ever been in an argument, you know you're angry. Usually you blurt out the truth. And months later, he was in a coma. They had to shut him up. Then he died. In 1976, an Israeli army officer testifying before the Knesset, Israel's Congress, said that in effect, if we do not recruit homosexuals, then we will not have enough manpower to fill the ranks. So arming homosexuals with machine guns, that sounds good. They've already got a chip on their shoulder. There's 2% of them in the public arena. Alright, moving on. So it says here on page 41, it has also been learned that Israel has had to resort to hiring foreign mercenaries. I keep saying that's what they've been doing. Every time we see the stuff on the news, beheadings or whatever else, they have hoods on and everything. So they have to hide their identities. Reason 2, another weak point, is the growing ill feeling between the Ashkenazi Jews and the Sephardic Jews in the Israeli army. So you got the ones that apparently are not real Jews, the Ashkenazis from the Eastern Europe area, not getting along with the Sephardic Jews, who are apparently real Jews, who have the same blood as all the Arabs, which is Semitic. So if you're actually an anti-Semitic, it means you're anti-Arab. Which I don't think most people are anti-Arab. That'd be like being anti-Mexican or anti-black people. That would be foolish. That would be racism. This has been because nearly all the officers are Ashkenazi Jews, and most of the lower ranks who do the fighting are Sephardic Jews. Due to the shabby treatment of Sephardic Jews by the Ashkenazi Jews, of which I'm probably saying these names wrong, and to all Jewish people, I apologize. Shabby treatment by the Sephardic Jews, by the Ashkenazi Jews in the army. A mutiny by Sephardic Jews is a strong possibility. A warning to Mr. and Mrs. America. The Marxist Zionists who rule Israel and the Marxist Zionists in America have been trying to trick the U.S. into the Mideast war. Will they accomplish that fact with 9/11? Thank you, Mr. Bush, Mr. Cheney, and all the other people involved. Weapons of mass destructions in Iraq. Where were they? Saudi Arabians were supposed to be on those planes with box cutters. Why did they attack Afghanistan? Questions, but little or few answers of truth. But here we might find out the real reason. On the side of Israel, of course, they are almost succeeded. So they want to get trick the USA into the Mideast war on the side of Israel, of course. They almost succeeded when the U.S. Marines were sent to Lebanon in 1982. The blood of 250 American Marines who died in Lebanon is dripping from the hands of the Israeli and American Zionists. So the banksters over here in New York and D.C. and all over the country are part of the people who are responsible for this stuff. If more Americans are not made aware of the truth about Zionist Marxist Israel, you can be sure that sooner or later, these atheists, who claim to be God's chosen people, will trick the U.S. into a Mideast war against the Arabs who, in the past, have always been America's best friends. So the Arabs in the past have been America's best friends. Been getting a lot of our oil from there. A lot of people in America have some Arab descent, German descent, French descent, Italian descent, African descent, Russian descent, German descent, Ireland descent. Most of the people in the world want to get along. But these New World Order people, according to this Jewish person, is telling all from his experience of going over there and learning. More American boys and girls will die because of these clever, murderous Zionists who, incidentally, have been responsible for pushing America into World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. In one book, Who Financed Hitler by the Pools, I read, tells the story. The Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins tells the story. There are many books I've gone over. And how many books do I have to go over and share to get people to go pick up some of these books and find out for themselves? Then I can retire from making these movies and get back on with my life. But never will I ignore what's going on in reality like I did prior to my raising the question to myself, what the heck is going on? And I pursued the question. I started studying almost 11 years ago. Will you someday be mourning the loss of your son or brother because of the Zionist treachery? Well, worse than that in 2015. We're this close to being on the edge of a cliff. They've controlled everything. Like I said the other day, I was sitting at Wednesday night, the jazz little pub I go to once in a while to see friends and music and have a cold beer. But my phone went off 3 times with the Amber Alert on different vehicles, and everybody in the whole bar, their phones went off. And we all thought it was suspicious. It wasn't just me. And I'm just wondering, are they testing the system? Will there be any EMP pulse taking out electricity? A nuclear power plant explosion? Yellowstone blowing? Maybe they can do that with the HARP systems or dynamite. A major earthquake planned with the HARP systems. A plague? Sky spraying. Start dropping some biological into the air. A threat of World War III. They already are preparing. There's no doubt about that. Very few people are that far removed from reality to know that the government hasn't been preparing. Underground cities, military equipment, hollow point bullets, FEMA camps, equipment being dispersed to police departments. People see this. Threats of the stock market crashing, the dollar crashing. And they've ruined the farmers and the water supply. They've interconnected everything so they can turn everything off. Instead of having operating individual cities and towns across the country, they're making everything independent. The smartest thing I can do to tell people, if they try to pull this off, is for everybody not to cooperate and just sit at home and not get out there on the streets and go crazy, and then they'll pull their riot control apparatus out and have an all-out war revolution where the government will win and everybody will be slaves. We don't have to cooperate with that. Get yourself a few weeks worth of food and water. Read a book and sit out on the front lawn. Get a suntan. Don't get involved other than having meetings in your town and trying to expose the culprits. All right, continuing on. Crime in Israel. Since Israel, formerly Palestine, is the land where Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad once walked, it would seem that the inhabitants of this land would have respect for this holy land and for the religious sites that exist here. Nearly all Arab Muslims and Arab Christians do have respect, even reverence, towards the holiness of the land, but only a small minority of the Jews have the same respect. This is a Jewish writer here. Almost 95% of the Jewish population are atheists and secular humanists, and they are not held back by the Ten Commandments and other restraints against sinful human behavior. I grew up Christian, Catholic, and I firmly believe in the Ten Commandments. The three I can think of that are on the second tablet from the top: don't kill, the second one on the top, no adultery, and the third one down is no stealing. And then, of course, the last two on the second tablet is don't bear false witness, and don't, what's that when you lust after what somebody else has? I'll think of the word. So that's on the second tablet. Alright, the first tablet is one God, no idols, don't do blasphemy, behave on the, take the Sabbath off, and honor thy mother and father. 10 Commandments. How hard is that? Alright, when the Zionist Bolshevik Jews won control of the Holy Land, remember that was Rothschilds making a deal with the UK called the Balfour Agreement, that if the Rothschilds supplied the money so the UK would win a war that it was using, World War I, that it was losing, and brought the USA citizens in on the war by making a deal with President Wilson. It's all a scandal. Then when England won the war, they would give support, Rothschilds, of obtaining the land of the Palestinians to start the state of Israel, which has been the cause of all the chaos and anarchy and horrible affairs worldwide ever since and before, so they can have their new world order, which is a satanic type of religion. They call it a new age, but it's really a return of the old age where they had the pharaohs in Egypt, Isis, Osiris, Horus, the all-seeing eye on the USA dollar bill. These are the religions of the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, the witchcraft, the Kabbalah, the Hollywood, the banksters, the royal elites. And apparently, as bizarre as it seems, there seems to be some kind of crazy DNA thing where these people, the high up level, may actually be part reptilian entities. If you do your research, you keep coming across that. And sometimes they get caught with their clothes off, and they have scaly tails and scales on their chest. And this is in the Bible also. Just saying, what is this UFO alien thing all about? And is that part of the big deception where the Pope comes to Philadelphia September, a couple weeks from now, in 2015, and announces that they have contact with these aliens? Will they be just in another way saying there are these beings that are on Earth that are half reptilian, half human? Remember, in the Garden of Eden now, this isn't so far-fetched. That was a snake being, reptilian, that told Adam and Eve not to listen to God. And throughout history, all the symbols of all the religions all over the world have these snake beings. Cold-blooded, reptilian. It could only be these kinds of creatures that have the cold-heartedness that they have the mentality of a wolf. And the rest of us, moral, decent people, have the mentality of a sheep. We just want to enjoy life and be left alone. But the wolves don't want that. When the Zionist Bolshevik Jews won control of the Holy Land, every form of sin began seeping into this land. Within a few short decades, this Holy Land became a modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah. You should see the YouTube videos about all this Sodom and Gomorrah sexual depravity, Illuminati, Hollywood stuff going on. What they talk about, that these people who confess, the whistleblowers, it's just too much to believe. The sick sex, pedophilia, child sacrifice, human sacrifice. Eating stuff you shouldn't be eating. Go watch the videos, you'll find out what I'm talking about. Drinking blood, eating humans, cannibalism. Anyways, drug trade, drug abuse, illegal weapons sales, prostitution, gambling, labor racketeering, murder, extortion, blackmail, insurance fraud, loan sharking, and corruption of the government officials and police going on in Israel. Israel has a highly organized crime syndicate headquartered at Bet Yam near Tel Aviv. Many members of the crime syndicate are ex-convicts and ex-commandos from the Israeli army, and they are highly skilled in the use of weapons and explosives. The crime syndicate in Israel operates openly because of the corruption in government and police circles. Some of the police and government officials are paid off by the crime syndicate, and some officials are actively associated with the crime operations. Nice little side business. The average American doesn't hear of this, the real side of Israel, because the Zionists controlled press. If you don't know this, Rockefeller in the early 1910, 1920s, I'm not sure of the date, I could look it up, asked one of his advisors, how many USA newspapers do I need to own to control the media? And his advisor told him, and he bought that many newspapers. And the Rockefellers, are one of the 13 Illuminati high-level families, blue bloods. So they do control our media. Radio stations, TV stations, newspapers, magazines. The real side of Israel, because the Israel-controlled press, radio, TV in America keeps silent about it. But in Israel, some newspapers report the facts. For instance, right in the middle of page 1 in a Hebrew language newspaper, just a couple of years ago, was an article that said, in effect, that what the Italian mafia couldn't accomplish in 40 years, the Israeli mafia accomplished in 5 years. It has developed the largest illegal drug exporting ring in the Middle East, selling drugs mainly to Germany and the United States. They've even set up a distribution network within Germany and the United States, according to this Jewish author. Except for a few religious Jews who have emotional and religious ties to the holy sites in Israel, and some lower-class Jews who can't afford to leave, all other decent Jews have left, or are planning to leave. One big reason is the sin permeating virtually every phase of the Israeli society. And they're trying to do that in the United States now. It's just too much for decent Jews to endure. And decent people in America are being ridiculed and called haters if they don't want to embrace these new changes in our society. Since terrorism, violence, and war are a way of life in Israel, it is only natural that the manufacturing of military equipment and arms has become Israel's main industry and export. During the first few years of its existence, Israel acquired its military needs from the United States and from communist countries. I told you that Israel, the Zionists, control Russia and control the United States and all of Europe. They've taken years to do it. They take the inch-by-inch approach, slowly, bribing people, politicians, families. They've taken over the system. But gradually, with the U.S. assistance, Israel developed its own arms industry. Zionists dominated the U.S. government and has led to an Israeli first policy. This Israeli first policy has severely hurt the U.S. economy. You think? Instead of manufacturing certain military materials in the U.S. and thus providing jobs for American workers, factories were set up in Israel with the U.S. financing and technical assistance to manufacture these products. The U.S. has also helped Israel set up factories to produce electronic equipment, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, home appliances, all products that could have been produced in the United States. While Israel profits from the Help Israel ventures, American workers are left standing in unemployment lines. And if they go homeless in many cities of America, they're illegal to be homeless and beg for money. And in my opinion, it seems like a lot of places, they're disappearing. Somebody is pulling them off the streets and doing what to them? I don't know. Satanic rituals, sacrifices? Come up with some other plausible thoughts, but I think I'd rather not say. Too horrific. Can you imagine if you were one of those people? 22-year-old guy who couldn't find work, was getting into trouble, his parents kicked him out, and he disappears. Could be laying on some altar. Some Satanists or Illuminati people could be drinking his blood. And those weren't the horrible things I could mention. Manufacturing of certain war materials has become so great that it has become Israel's main export. This war-creating country, which has been portrayed as the only barrier to communism in the Middle East, sells its war products to anyone who has the money, including repressive dictatorships, fascist or communist. Israel not only sells weapons made in Israel, but it also sells weapons supplied to Israel by the United States. It has been discovered that some weapons used by the Soviet forces in Afghanistan were made in the United States of America and were originally shipped to Israel. It has also been learned that some weapons used by Cuban forces in Angola were made in the USA and originally shipped to Israel. It is ironic that the United States is in a life and death struggle against the spread of communism, 1984. And today people laugh about it, but it's happening. Even the Pope and all the government officials and United Nations, if you'd have mentioned a New World Order 10 years ago, people would have snickered and laughed and said, "You're a conspiracy theorist." But today, all these government agencies and the Vatican and the presidents and politicians and CEOs and the United Nations are calling for a New World Order. So there was never a conspiracy theory. It was a fact. And I keep saying on my videos, if they pull it off, we are all going to be in serious regret. And people will walk around going, "Why didn't we see this coming? We could have stopped this." So the United States is in a death struggle against the spread of communists. Yet our Zionist-dominated U.S. government allows military equipment to be shipped to communist forces via Israel. Israelis' racist policies. You recall that I mentioned my troubles in Israel when I began as an Ashkenazi Jew married to a Sephardic Jewish, says Jack Bernstein. Anti-Sephardic treatment by Ashkenazi Jews is even official government policy. So I entered a cafe in Tel Aviv. The place was crowded. I sat down at the only seat available. Also sitting at this table were 5 Sephardic Jews from Morocco. They learned that I was studying the Hebrew language, and they were helping me with my studies, when a blue-eyed, Nazi-type Israeli police officer walked into the cafe. He ordered me to get away from these kushim. Kushim in Hebrew is the equivalent of the name that they call black people that's nasty, beginning with an N. I don't want to say it. We all know what it is. So he called them kushim, which means the N-word for black people. And I replied, after I finished eating, because the police officer said, get away from those kushim. And he said, Jack Bernstein, after I finished eating. The officer drew his service revolver and shouted, you move now. You'd better listen to him, the cafe owner advised me, so I got up. Standing close to me, the officer pointed his gun right at my face and ordered, throw your coffee and pastry on the floor. So he felt a little intimidated, so he did. Later, I learned I had been lucky. He could have arrested me if he had wished, and he could have even shot me under a vaguely defined Israeli laws for sitting with the Kushim, Sephardic Jews. Can you just imagine if they pull off the martial law and the revolution in the United States, the New World Order, and the elites, these apostolic people, Ashkenazi Jews, Illuminati types, high-level Freemasons, occultists, Satanists, are in charge. 90% of us are going to be treated like these Kushims. And they'll have the legal right to probably just shoot any one of us if we look at them wrongly. You don't believe it? Go investigate. See what I've got more books and material to go over. It's in these books. And I don't believe all these books, as many as I've done, a couple of 100 hours of videos, a couple of 100 books, magazines, hundreds, videos I've watched, press releases I've printed out and cataloged. It all can't be a lie. In the U.S., if anyone complains of priest brutality or misconduct, there is an investigation, but not in Israel. And as we know now in the United States, the police are becoming a whole lot more vicious. It's in the news all the time. And they're having exercises, Jade Helm, for dispersing troops and heavy equipment, military equipment all around the United States, pretending to extract dissidents, people, anti-government belligerents, people who maybe know too much, like what I'm reading about. Looks like it's coming quicker than people want to know, to think about. That's called normalcy bias. Nobody wants to admit what they see coming. The person registering a complaint can expect police reprisal in the form of a beating. So will that happen here in the USA? So they're already making it illegal in some places to take a picture of or video or record police officers doing their job, or should I say, doing a job, beating up somebody with batons. They want to make it a crime to videotape that. Besides being denied decent housing and decent employment because I was married to a Sephardic Jewish, I was also the target of racial slurs. Other American Ashkenazis who had gone to Israel and married Sephardic Jewesses also received the same treatment as I. Sephardic Jews in Israel tell a European Ashkenazi Jew, Hitler didn't kill enough of you. So again, in my opinion on the Germany thing, it was the Zionist Ashkenazi Jewish people who had to do away with the Sephardic Jews because they weren't supporting Zionism. So the Rothschilds clearly are Zionist Jewish, and they were financing Hitler, who was forced to round up Jewish people because all the other countries all throughout Europe and the United States refused to take any of these Jews who were being deported. So Hitler deported them to Poland, where they were put in camps. And I have a book written by a Polish lieutenant who tells a totally different story than what the public knows. By a Polish lieutenant who was in charge of these camps with these Jews in an inspection, and how the officials were going through these camps and collecting any bits of gold and jewelry and whatever they could get from these Jews they had put in these little camps. And the powers in charge were the Zionist Rothschild Rockefellers establishment financing Hitler, as per the Pools and Who Financed Hitler, and many other books. Alright, please read the next paragraph carefully. I was born in the United States, attended public schools, worked in various parts of the U.S., served 2 years in the U.S. Army, and not even once was I persecuted or did I have racist remarks made to me because I was a Jew. Jack Bernstein says that. The Zionist-controlled news media in America has kept the news from the American people that Israel is an intensely racist. Most Ashkenazi Jews in America are not aware of the racism in Israel. Even those Jews who have visited Israel are not aware because they are carefully kept from witnessing racist incidents. However, Sephardic Jews in America have spread the truth about the practice of racism against the Sephardic Jews in Israel. From what I have written so far, you should now realize that few Jews practice Judaism. Most Jews are atheists, and they follow humanism, which is an anti-God religion of its own. So the portrayal that Jews are a religious people who look to Israel as fulfillment of biblical prophecy is a myth. Jack Bernstein. Communism in Israel. The Zionist-controlled news media, page 48. Controlled newspaper in the United States has led the American people to believe that Israel is the only barrier holding back communism in the Middle East. This would actually be humorous if it did not have such serious implications for the United States. From what I have said so far, you should now realize that Israel is basically a Marxist country mixed with some Nazi-type fascism. Number one, Israel is the only country in the Mideast that allows communist parties to operate. Ironically, it is the Arab countries which forbid communist parties to operate. Makes me wonder, who should our pals be? Israel or the Arabs? And obviously our pals should be the Arabs, because they're destroying the Muslims and they're destroying the Christians. And they're getting all the other people to be atheists or New Age, goddesses of earth. The earth is alive. You got to take care of Mother Goddess, or Isis, or Osiris, or Horus on the U.S. dollar bill, and all the other decadent activities that go on with the satanic religions. The exception is North Yemen, which through treachery was taken over by the communists. Some of the Arab countries buy military equipment from communist countries because they can't get enough from the United States. To offset the huge amount of the United States provides Israel. The Soviet Union allows a good number of Jews to leave if they promise to go to Israel, and Israel welcomes these communist-oriented Jews. Most, if not many, if not most Soviet Jews, once they get out of Russia, come to the United States instead of going to Israel. It must also be noted that hundreds of thousands of Jews have left Israel since its founding. Some of these Jews have even requested to go back to the Soviet Union rather than live in Israel. Life for these Jews is actually better in Soviet Russia. The latest scientific developments that the United States provides Israel are channeled onto the Soviet Union. So we give Israel some of our high technology and they send it off to Russia. Like I said before, these Zionist people in charge, the banksters, the Rothschilds, the bloodlines of the Illuminati, all the occultists and all that, control Russia, control the United States, and control Israel, and probably control all of Europe. And there looks like a bad day is coming. They want that New World Order. About 1/3 of the Kisnet belong to the, that's the political party, one of the Israelis' communist, socialist, or Marxist-oriented parties. This fact alone should put the rest of the lie about Israel being the only barrier against communism in the Middle East. Exposing the truth. Jack Bernstein. In fact, it is the Arab countries that form the barrier that has stopped the spread of communism in the Middle East. But our Zionist-owned newspapers don't paint the picture that way. And our talking heads on TV that everybody sees on the nightly news are demonizing the Arabs. Terrorism and violence. At the first Zionist Congress meeting, which was held in 1897, think about this, in Basel, Switzerland, one of the goals was to set a Jewish state in the land of Palestine. That's why they formed World War I, or the Rothschilds offered money to the United Kingdom, UK, London, England. In the, when was World War I? 1914 to 1916? 1897, 20 years earlier, they already had a meeting in Basel, Switzerland, and one of the goals was to create a Jewish state in the land of Palestine. Can you see the intrigue, the deception, the propaganda behind the scenes? And many American men and women, Europeans, who died in these wars. See, do you not think that this is serious business and they're going to accomplish their goals if we let them and remain ignorant and apathetic? At that time, only a few Jews were living in Palestine, and they were nearly all native Sephardic Jews who are blood-related Semites to the Arabs. These Palestinian Sephardic Jews and the Palestinian Arabs were living in peace as they had for many centuries. After the Zionist Congress in 1897, European Ashkenazi Jews began migrating to Palestine and buying land wherever they could. Yet by 1920, this would be after World War I, Jews owned only 2% of Palestine. And by the way, after World War I, the UK reneged on its promise deal, the Balfour Agreement, with the Rothschilds, and wouldn't sell out the Arabs and give them the land of Palestine. So World War II was needed. And the League of Nations was the first established group to try to bring this about, and they couldn't come under the control of these Zionist satanic entities, Rothschilds, Illuminati. So they had the new group, the United Nations, because the League of Nations failed to come under their control and do their bidding. But apparently the United Nations is well under their control and doing their bidding with things like Agenda 21, the homosexual agenda, the one world government, the one world religion, and all kinds of other activities that are removing the freedoms and rights of the sovereignty of the American people and the European people and other people. It's a worldwide issue. By 1948, when Israel declared itself a state, those invading Jews had increased their land ownership, but it was still less than 6%. To accommodate the increasing European Jewish migration, the Jews needed more land. So to get more land from the Palestinians, these communist-oriented European Ashkenazi Jews resorted to the one thing at which they are most adept, terrorism. Get it? Got it. Terrorism in all over the world right now, coming from these New World Order folks, not normal, everyday, good Christian people, or probably good Islamic Muslims living in peace with these shepherdetic Jews for centuries. Their first major act of terrorism against the Palestinians was at the Palestinian village of Deir Yassin. During the night of April 9th, 1948, two Zionist terrorist groups, the Imgun and the Stern Gang, attacked and massacred over 250 men, women, and children. Menachem Begin was the leader of the vicious attack on Deir Yassin. He later became the Prime Minister of Israel and had this to say: "The massacre was not only justified, but there would not have been a state of Israel without the victory at Deir Yassin." The massacre at Deir Yassin caused other Palestinians to flee their homes in fear. Just like they're doing now in 2015, causing all the immigration problems to Greece and Germany and countries all over the Middle East and Europe. All these people flee in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. If they don't flee, they get murdered. Got it? Get it? Zionist terrorists drove trucks with loudspeakers through the streets and over the roads of Palestine, warning Palestinians that what had happened at Deir Yassin would happen to them too if they didn't leave. These Zionist terrorists weren't bluffing either, as proved by these examples. They killed 60 Palestinians at Balad Eshik. Page 51, you can get the book and get the exact correct pronunciation yourself. They blew up 20 homes in Sasa, killing 60 women and children. They killed an unknown number of women who were working in St. Simon Monastery in Jerusalem. They massacred 250 at Lydia, Lydda. They killed 200, mostly old people, in the village mosque of Ed Diwanam. Pronunciation. They killed 51 workers as they returned from their fields in Kafra Quisin. Christian inhabitants at Kabbalah Baren were expelled from the village when the village was destroyed. The village cemetery was desecrated, including the smashing of 73 crosses. Alright, I'm almost done here with this portion of the video. Acts of terrorism were taking place. About 300,000 Palestinian Christians, 300,000, and Muslims were forced to leave their homes or be killed by the terrorist groups who were made up of European communist-oriented Jews. It was these same Marxist-oriented Jews who were soon to become the ruling elite of the State of Israel. From the beginning to the present, 1984, these terrorist, Marxist-oriented Zionists have ruled Israel. These are the people trying to bring about a new world order and destroying the family and the Christian religion in the United States of America now. And if they pull off their event, maybe Project Bluebeam, where everybody will see Jesus in the sky or aliens or something, planning something big. Make no bones about it. They talk about Planet X, Yellowstone blowing up, Ebola, water crisis, dark market. They haven't left anything out. So they've got all kinds of options. Maybe they'll use a combination of options. Alright. After Israel declared itself a state on May 14, 1948, Israeli terrorism continued in an effort to push more Palestinians from their homes. Since then, more than 350 Christian churches and Muslim mosques have been destroyed by these Zionist terrorists. So they're over here in the United States, they're trying to get the people to believe that the Arabs are evil. When the Arabs are everything from atheists to Christians to Muslim to Buddhists, Hindu, they're everything. See, they don't say it that way. Now they're also saying that the Christians here, for not accepting the decadent, transgendered, homosexual, and adulterous and bisexual agenda, freedom to do whatever you want, as Aleister Crowley would preach. There's no 10 Commandments. You don't have to listen to God. Because because there is no God, there is no devil. Come on, believe us. I wonder how many people are buying this, that there is nothing to fear. Do whatever you want. Be as perverted and sick as you want to be. That's your right. The destruction of religion, faith by the Zionist Jews is well underway in the United States. It says it right here, Jack Bernstein. It says what Rick Miracle's saying. And many other people. In Israel, it has nearly been accomplished. To accomplish their goals, the Zionists will not let anyone stand in their way. During World War II, the Zionist leadership cooperated with the Nazis by delivering lower-class Jews to the concentration camps. Exactly what I've been saying. I didn't think this up. I've been reading too many books. I know that those Jews that they did kill, along with many other unwanted people, Christians and people who were sick or just unwanted, they went to the concentration camps. It wasn't just Jews, but it wasn't the bad Jews that went there. It was the good Jews who would not support Zionism and the New World Order and Satanism. So it is not surprising that they sank the ship Patria, carrying 252 Jewish immigrants whom the Zionists had feared might oppose Zionism. So I suspect they were Sephardic Jews, the good Jews. And the good Jews are active, as you saw in my last video, opposing Zionism. And the Judaism does not support Zionism. So it's not a religious thing at all. It's all a disguise and propaganda. Calling themselves God-chosen people, and they're not even blood related to the Jewish people, Sephardic Jews. In another incident, 760 Jewish lives were forfeited when the Zionists sank the ship Stroma for the same reason. All I got left here. The Israeli-Palestine era, starting to misspeak here. It's not easy to do a couple-hour video. The Israeli-Palestine area, the United Nations sent Count Folke Benedetto of Sweden to mediate. So way back then, they sent the Count Folke Benedetto to Sweden to mediate the Israeli-Palestinian land problem. Count Benedetto favored a partitioning of the area with a portion of the land for the Jews and a portion of the land for the Palestinians. But this angered the Zionists who wanted all the land. The Zionists eliminated Count Benedetto. He and his driver were assassinated while riding down the streets of Jerusalem. Tens of millions of innocent people have been killed since the Zionist Bolshevik Jews, backed by the Zionist-oriented Jewish international bankers, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Morgan Chases, and all these people, took over Russia in 1917. And like I said, all this was planned because in December 1913, President Wilson cooperated with these conspirators to create the Federal Reserve on Christmas holiday, December 1913. World War I started in June 1914, 6 months later. They couldn't have had World War I, have had it, if they didn't control America and the banking system, and President Wilson. And then during World War I, when England was losing the war with Germany, the Rothschilds said, hey, we'll provide the money and get America in the war, because they controlled President Wilson, if you will promise us the Palestinians' land. You see, it was all planned. Then what was that, 1897? They had a meeting and planned all this out. And I got a book by Herschel. We went over that before. The State of Israel book I showed you. We'll go over it again. There's too many books planning all this. Albert Pike, 1880s, writing a letter to his friend over there in Italy, Mussolini, that he wanted to, there would have to be 3 world wars for them to accomplish their new world order, which is all of an occult, sick religious program, by the way, which is these entities apparently on the other side, which we will see is true, that are really behind the scenes here, mentoring these humans, which many of them may not be 100% DNA human. Maybe there's something to this reptilian thing. So it seems. I don't know why they're into all this sick sex and drinking blood and killing children. And so they killed Count Bernardito. Tens of millions of innocent people have been killed since the Zionist Bolshevik Jews backed the Zionist-oriented Jewish international bankers took over Russia in 1917. So they couldn't have taken over in 1917 if they didn't have the World War I, which they couldn't have had that from 1914 to 1916, if they didn't take over the Federal Reserve in 1913. You see the dominoes? Everything has been one thing to another. Like 9/11 was done so they could have all the wars and occupation in the Middle East right now. And apparently the occupation in the United States of America right now. Destroying the economy, causing the turmoil and homelessness in the streets, trying to create race wars between black people and white people, rich people and poor people, religious people and anti-religious people, into transgenderism and adultery and bisexuality and everything else. Go party with the drag queens downtown. It's a crazy world they're taking us to. Reminds me of the Hunger Games movie. In the Middle East, the same Zionist Bolshevik Jews are using the very same tactic. They are routing the Arabs from their land by killing untold thousands of them and rendering hundreds of thousands homeless. The question then arises, how many Arabs will they kill when the Zionist Bolsheviks gain control over the entire Middle East? When they gain control over America, how many of us? They've already got plans. Truck drivers are reporting delivering guillotines to army bases. Governments are buying hollow point bullets. FEMA camps are sprouting up everywhere. They're transforming Walmarts apparently to some kind of FEMA camp control center across the country with Jade Helm. It's not my imagination. You can look all this up. Watch some of the TV programming with all the satanic symbolism. Grammys, football halftime shows, cartoons. Whatever these mysterious, sinister, demonic beings are, they're certainly pushing forward. So how many will they kill of America when they take control, says Jack Bernstein. They already have control of nearly every phase of American life, and they do. They control the food supply, they control the water, they control the money. They can turn off our cell phones, they can turn off our credit cards, our ATM, the banks. They can create a situation, which if you've been following me reading this material, that's what they do. There will be nothing to stop them from a complete takeover of America. Page 53. So, how many pages in this book? 110, 111, 113. So I haven't read half of this book. And I didn't read all of the first half. Go buy the book. There's more in here. But you've learned enough from what I showed you that if this is true, we are in trouble. Alright, Protocols of Zion next. Alright, I went and got the book. Protocols of Zion. Go online, look them up. Probably find a free copy. Print it out. Get yourself a highlighter like I do. Read them. And weep. In the first part of this 66 series, I did Protocol 10. On the second part, part 2, I did 11 and 12. So here I'm going to do 13, 14, and maybe 15. So why don't I just jump into it? Protocol number 13. Remember, these things were written 100 years ago or more. So it's kind of, again, interesting to read what they said they were going to do, and what they did do, and what they are doing. The need for daily bread. Get that? The need for daily bread. All of us need to eat. Forces the goyim to keep silence and be humble, be our humble servants. So the need for daily bread forces the goyim, that's non-Jewish people, which means cattle, to keep silent and be our humble servants. Agents taken on to our press, newspapers, from among the goyim will be at our orders, discuss anything which is inconvenient for us to issue directly. So they will have some paid shills to communicate to the goyim, us, to say things that they don't want to say in official documents. And we, meanwhile, quietly amid the din of the discussion so raised, shall simply take and carry through such measures as we wish, and then offer them to the public as an accomplished fact. No one will dare to demand an abrogation of the matter once settled. All the more so it will be representative as an improvement. So they're going to issue executive orders. And nobody will question it for fear of reprisal. Immediately the press will distract the current of thought towards new questions. Have we not trained people always to seeking something new? So just like they do now, whenever people start focusing on any issue, doesn't something horrific just all of a sudden happen? And then everybody's looking over there, or everybody's looking over there. I've noticed that. Have you noticed that? Into the discussion of these new questions will throw themselves those of the brainless dispensers of fortunes who are not able even now to understand that they have not the remotest conception about the matter which they undertake to discuss. So they think we're fools, stupid. From all of this, you see that in securing the opinion of the mob, so they think as the people, we, as a mass of people, a mob, that they can put something out there on the news, a bombing where some guy goes into a church and kills 6 or 7 black people, and everybody will get distracted. And then next thing you know, they want to get rid of the rebel flag. See how easy they can control people? What is the rebel flag having to do with that guy doing that? When it finds out, apparently, it's something he really probably didn't do, was under some kind of mind control. Because he even has black friends who said he didn't hate black people. Something not going on. He looked like he was a zombie under some kind of medication. Didn't they all? Batman shooting, Boston bomber people. All these people look like the Sandy Hook school shooting. They all look like they're dazed. Just saying. We deceive workers in order to distract people who may be too troublesome from discussions of questions of the political. We are now putting what we allege to be a new questions of the political, namely questions of industry. So people want to question an issue, they'll just change the topic. In this sphere, let them discuss themselves silly. So they'll come up with a new topic and let everybody discuss themselves silly. So it says here, the masses are agreed to remain inactive, to take a rest from what they suppose to be political, which we trained them in order to use them as a means of combating the Goy government. In order that the masses direct themselves may not guess what they are about, we further distract them with amusements, games, pastimes, passions, people's palaces. Soon we shall begin through the press to propose competitions in art, in sport, and in all kinds. These interests will finally distract their minds from questions in which we should find ourselves compelled to oppose them. growing more and more unaccustomed to reflect and form any opinion of their own, people will begin to talk in the same tone as we, because we alone shall be offering them new directions for thought. And I was trying to remember the word in the last video, and I kept calling it reflex actions. It's reactionary. I don't know why my brain didn't think of that. So when they do these events like Sandy Hook or 9/11, and they force the politicians into reactionary policies with ridicule from the newspaper and the media, so that they have to go over there to Iraq or Afghanistan and go to war, because then they say that if you don't do that, there's going to be another 9/11. So the reactionary, which is a reflex action. But see, these people are serious students of psychology. So if you take psychopathic people, Satanists, who are quite knowledgeable about psychology, they can play with our minds and the minds of the politicians and the minds of the people. That's my explanation. And they think we're stupid because we don't catch on. The part played by the liberals, utopian dreamers, will be finally played out when our government is acknowledged. So all that New Age stuff that they're feeding everybody, I thought about that, the New Age. You know, the reason the people joined the Freemasonic lodges was to learn the secrets. It was a temptation. Yes? And then when they got there and they learned all these secrets about reality, they thought everybody that didn't know anything were lower than them, were called profane. Now with the New Age, what they're doing is they're feeding these secrets to the people out on the streets, the mob. And they get all these books about healing and herbs and all this, and they think they know something special. You see what they're doing? Mind control, propaganda, deception, beguilement. Therefore, we shall continue to direct their minds to all sorts of vain conceptions, of fantastic theories, new and apparently progressive. They love to use that word progressive. It's funny, you know, you enter prison, you progress towards the prison. When you get in those big gates, you're in the prison, and you progress down the walkway to where the cells are. So you're progressing. And when you get in that area where all the cells are, you are guided to your cell, you're progressing there. So it's all a game of words, progression. Everything is about progress, but where is that progress going to take us? Yep, you got to be progressive. Where are you going? For have we not, with complete success, turned the brainless, this is what this Jewish people, Zionism, who established the protocols of Zion over 100 years ago, think of we the people, brainless heads of the goyim. For have we not, with complete success, turned the brainless heads of the goyim with progress, till there is not among the goyim one mind able to perceive that under this word lies a departure from truth, in all cases where it is not a question of material inventions, for truth is one, in it there is no place for progress. Progress, like a fallacious idea, serves to obscure truth so that none may know it, except us, the chosen of God, its guardians. And we know from reading Jack Bernstein's book, these people are not religious at all. They lie. When we come into our kingdom, our orators will expound great problems which have turned humanity upside down in order to bring it at the end under our beneficial rule. So they're causing all the problems right now. That will enable them to get into power. And they say they're going to save us when they're the ones who created the problem. The Hegelian dialectic. That's what it's called. Create a problem so that you can bring the solution and get to where you want to go. Who will ever suspect that all these peoples were staged, managed by us according to a political plan which no one has so much as guessed in the course of many centuries? Well, I've guessed. If you've been listening to my videos, you've probably guessed. We need to spread the word around. Protocol number 14. When we come into our kingdom, it will be undesirable for us that there should exist any other religion than ours of the one God. We know they don't believe in God, but they're going to have this descendant of King David, a human, who they're going to call a God, which the Pharaoh back in Egypt, thousands of years ago, was called the God. Even Caesar in Rome was called the living God. So it's not a new age, it's a return to an old age. We want to destroy civilization as we know it. Bring back slavery. You for that? And of course, kill off 85% of the population, as the United Nations seemingly largest major priority is depopulating the planet. They don't need the people. That's the only reason. And through whom our same destiny is united with the destinies of the world. We must therefore sweep away all other forms of belief. I'm not reading everything. I just highlighted some stuff here. Then at every possible opportunity we shall publish articles in which we shall make comparisons between our beneficial rule and those of past ages. The blessing of tranquility. So they're going to cause chaos and anarchy. So people beg for tranquility. They understand the mind. They know how to wear out the people. Though it be a tranquility forcibly brought about by centuries of agitation. See, they're saying it. We'll throw into higher relief the benefits which we shall point. The errors of the Goyim governments will be depicted by us in the most vivid hues. We shall implant such an abhorrence of them that the peoples will prefer tranquility in a state of serfdom, so that you'll be happy with your slavery, to those rights of vaunted freedom which have tortured humanity and exhausted the very sources of human existence. Useless changes of forms of government to which we instigate the Goyim when we were undermining their state structure. So they're saying they were undermining our state structure. They're corrupting our politicians, putting the bad people in charge. They came from the Freemasonic lodges and other institutions, and they had to select the evil people that they had something on. They have a system. That's why the bad people wind up in office. They have a system to filter out the good people. And if a good guy does get in there trying to do something decent, like Kennedy, we know what happens. We'll have so wearied the peoples by that time that they will prefer to suffer anything under us rather than run the risk of enduring again all the agitations and miseries they have gone through. They're saying here they have to make it so bad that people will be happy with slavery. We shall forbid Christ. At the same time, we shall not omit to emphasize the historical mistakes of the Goy governments which have tormented humanity. After fantastic schemes of social blessings, and have never noticed that these schemes kept on producing a worse and never a better state of universal relations, which are the basis of human life. And a lot of us know the churches are now all corrupted. I don't deny that. But that doesn't mean we the people have to be corrupted. The whole force of our principles and methods will lie in the fact that we shall present them and expound them as a splendid contrast to the dead and decomposed old order of things in social life. Our philosophers will discuss all the shortcomings of the various beliefs of the Goyim, which means cattle, But no one will ever bring under discussion our faith from its true point of view, since this will be fully learned by none save ours, who will never dare to betray its secrets. Well, we're learning the secrets in my videos and many others. Go on YouTube, get some books. Secret Mystery School of Babylon, Bill Cooper. Go look that up. He's got a lot of videos. Tells you all about this religion. In countries known as progressive and enlightened, we have created a senseless, filthy, abominable literature. Did you hear what I said? In countries known as progressive and enlightened, we have created a senseless, filthy, abominable literature. So they control these porn magazines, porn websites, and everything else. These Zionist Jewish folks do. They have controlled that industry forever. Even the regular book publishing companies, Hollywood. For some time after our entrance to power, we shall continue to encourage its existence in order to provide a telling relief by contrast to the speeches party program which will be distributed from exalted quarters of ours. Now remember, 85% of the Jews in the United States are probably oblivious to this. They're not Zionists, they're not New World Order people, they're not joining the satanic parties of demented sexual perversions and activities and drinking blood and everything else they do. Our wise men, trained to become leaders of the Goyim, will compose speeches, projects, memoirs, articles, which will be used to us to influence the mind of the Goyim, directing them towards such understanding and forms of knowledge as to have been determined by us. So what you know or think you know is what they will allow you to know and told you that you can know. I thought I'd do something a little interesting. Show you some more books I have. To try to, I guess, give us an overwhelming proof, evidence, of what people don't know. How all this works. This masters in another dimension communicating to these evil people who practice these satanic rituals. Witches' circles, the coven of witches having group sex, orgies in Hollywood, where 5 or 6 men will have a new recruit who joined the Illuminati to become a star and get rich. He has to agree to have sex with all these men. Some really crazy stuff if you start looking into it. It's just a really sad state of affairs for the human race that this can even exist. So anyways, I'm going to go quickly through a couple books here to show you. The Mind Possessed. The Physiology of Possession, Mysticism, and Faith Healing. A fantastic study. My point is I got over 500 books. I've got plenty of books in the future to read. Some I've already read. Alright, I read the back of this book. This surprising book investigates the methods that witch doctors, voodoo priests, southern revivalists, and others use to create overwhelming emotions and to sway the mind. A prominent psychiatrist, Dr. William Sargent, shows how pulsating music, frantic dancing, fiery preaching, bizarre sexual practices, and drugs can all play a part in cases of possession, mystical experience, and faith healing. Drawing on examples culled in the course of his far-ranging travels, he discovers the same psychological mechanism at work in possession by gods, spirits, and demons, in the utterances of oracles, and the behavior of people under hypnosis, in the successes of faith healers, and his own psychiatric techniques. The Mind Possessed is illustrated with photographs from Dr. Sargent's unique private collection. Okay? So if these people are into the Kabbalah, witchcraft, magic, and I have a point to make, and they come over here, these Yiddish Jews or whoever, and they want to start taking over companies, businesses, properties, and they know how to use voodoo and magic, and they're willing, they don't believe in God, and they don't have any restraint. They could kill to get what they want. And in Kentucky, maybe somebody has a moonshine label of whiskey, something famous we all know, and they want it, and they go to the guy, hey, we want to buy your business, and the guy says, no, you can't buy my business. And 2 weeks later, he's found dead in the brushes. The family has to sell it off because they can't run it, and this Zionist person or Illuminati person, whoever's trying to take over the world, offers them pennies on the dollar, buys up the moonshine whiskey facility in Kentucky. This is in Henry Ford's book, by the way. I'm giving you a story. Move the manufacturing facility to Louisville or Chicago. Start diluting it, 1 part of the original whiskey, and using the label that has a good reputation, and 9 parts maybe formaldehyde or some kind of other poison. And people start going raving mad and dying and going blind across the country because these people were buying up all the liquor establishments. This is true. Remember, these people are like the mafia. So then you have to have prohibition, and liquor has to be made illegal. This is all a real story, I'm telling you. This is how these people gained power and own most of the world right now. They didn't do it by honest means. They know how to use magic. It would behoove us regular citizens to learn about this stuff. And I've been studying this for quite a while. I spent 5 or 6 years just studying psychic research before I ever bounced or accidentally came across the Illuminati world. It wasn't my goal. I was just trying to find out what's going on with reality. You got another book here, The Paranormal. Remarkable, makes us look anew at what we call reality and cuts new paths for human understanding. I'll read the back of this one. When Stan Gooch was 26, a strange thing happened to him. I became aware of certain light-headedness, and then suddenly it seemed to me that a great wind was rushing through the room. In my ears there was a deafening sound of roaring waters. Together these elements seized me and carried me irresistibly forward. As I felt myself swept up, I became unconscious. He had gone into a mediumistic trance. His first paranormal experience, which marked the beginning of his long fascination with the truth about the paranormal. Now a gifted psychic and a professional psychologist, Stan Gooch uses his own experience and others to show the paranormal phenomenon, including healing, poltergeist activity, telepathy, clairvoyance, life after death, exists beyond reasonable doubt. There's a point to all this. Here's another one here I got. I just randomly went to a couple of my bookcases and pulled out some books. I have many more. Closer to the Light. Learning from the near-death experiences of children. Because I continually to get comments on some of my stuff and when I essays or whatever from people that they don't believe there's a God. They don't believe they have a soul. They don't believe there's a devil. So you got Melvin Morse, MD, and Paul Perry, Moody, MD, and Raymond. Compelling. What a salute to Moore's moral courage and intellectual curiosity in his book. Reading the back of these things. It was only 10 years ago that Dr. Raymond Moody first discovered that near-death experiences occur with children. The children weren't lying. They were in hospitals. They died. They came back and they saw grandparents, maybe, that were dead before they were even born. Experimental psychical research. Robert Thules, To examine without prejudice or prepossession in the scientific spirit that those faculties of man, real or supposed, which appear to be inexplicably on any quality recognized hypothesis, so runs an official description of the object of the Society of Psychical Research. It is with the same object in view that Dr. R.H. Tholis takes the reader over the experimental research of parapsychology. Just making a point. So we realize this is a cult world out there. We go over this enough. And we also find out, if you go to Mecca, say you're a Muslim, they have this gigantic circle. You've probably seen pictures in a gigantic black stone that everybody walks around. Yes? And then the Muslims have the Dome of the Rock where King Solomon Temple used to sit in Jerusalem. Yes? And the Jews want to rebuild King Solomon's Temple. It's all about magic. There's something on the other dimension they're after. Opening up portals, bringing these beings in. And apparently, according to this protocols of Zion and all this other stuff, they're not very nice beings. They don't like humans. They hate anybody who believes in Jesus. It's their arch enemy. So anyways, the big black stone in Muslim Islam that they all walk around in their religious ceremony, they make a pilgrimage every year. In the United Nations, they have a meditation room with the big black stone, as you can see here, and all kinds of symbolic symbols in the back. And the buildings looking like Masonic buildings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 666. And this particular symbol here, as we see everywhere, the wings. This is the United Nations now. So when I told you that the Rothschilds couldn't control it with the League of Nations on World War I after that, they had to disband it. And then World War II, they did the United Nations, and they were able to control it. And it is an occult, satanic, Luciferic, New Age, like the Pharaoh's Egyptian hieroglyphics. And you can see the symbols on all the documents and the US dollar bill. And a lot of people a lot smarter than me have, it's all in here. I've talked about this in previous videos. Just trying to make a point. Another book I want to go over, maybe the next series, 67 or something, is this book. Edward Hendry. And maybe I could just read one thing in here that, as you can see, I've already been reading it and highlighted everything. The secret societies, Freemasonic lodges, remember this series is Freemasonry and Satanism. The secret society appears to be the organized model for Judaism. See what we're talking about? The Zionist people are the same as the Illuminati, are the same as the Freemasonic lodges, Rosicrucian, Kabbalah, Church of Satan, all these people. According to this guy too, Bloody Zion, for Judaism as well as Freemasonry, Zionism and communism, which are Masonic orders, according to this author. Essentially, the leadership deceives and manipulates the membership with idealistic sounding goals. Only those corruptible and blackmailable are left on the true agenda and allowed to rise. This model now applies to the whole world. Successful people have often accepted the devil's bargain, serve me and I will give you the world. This view of Judaism is confirmed by the author of the Protocols of Zion. That's what we were just going over. Who says, no one will ever bring under discussion our faith from its true point of view, since this will be fully learned by none save ours, who will never dare to betray the secrets. Protocol 14. Isn't that the next one I have to do? I mean, we just did 14. Excuse me. Edith Starr Miller, we looked at her book once when we went through the Blue Lodge handbooks. An expert on religion and the occult, called Judaism a secret society posing as a religion, a sect within the Judaism as a rite. So when we talk about these governments, Zionism, and these people are atheists or whatever else, it's worse than that. They're not atheists. They're Satanists. And as I mentioned many times before, they control Hollywood, an empire of their own. And I've been reading this. I've just got a couple tabs. But I got to tell you, the behavior of these people, when I read this, page 259, an empire of their own. What bit so deeply in Shinek and other Hollywood Jews was not just the pagan demonstration of wealth. Gambling was a kind of therapy that cut through all the afflictions and reduced everything to the bare naked aggression. It tested the skills of bluff and nerve and judgment, which were the measure of a film executive, and it provided a small arena for tremendously competitive and insecure men to intimidate one another and prove themselves. So it goes right into these people's actions and everything else. And it's not very nice what I've been reading. But you can go get the book. Maybe one day I'll try to read it all and actually highlight the stuff I need to tell you. But from what I have read already, one more thing I'll read. 401. It almost seemed a rite of passage for the Hollywood Jew. Like Mayer, Harry Cohn had married a young Gentile wife, fathered a family, moved into a mansion, his in Beverly Hills, across the street from the Beverly Hills Hotel, and fended off threats to his empire from those who believed he was aging and vulnerable. Anyways, a lot of dirt in here about how these people behave and took over things. I got another one here, an invisible empire, invisible government. And I was looking at it, and again, page 17. How many times have you heard someone say, I don't know why I did it, or something just took hold of me? Think of the Holocaust and the atrocities committed in the concentration camps by individuals who were supposed to be civilized human beings. This guy's a preacher here. Why? Demon power is in control of the world. So, I have been thinking a lot about this. And I think, I've been saying in my videos, as you have been, if you've been watching them, that we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. And we have a symbiotic relationship, our souls do, with the higher world. According to healing and auras and all that stuff, apparently on the top of our head are silver cords, and somehow we're connected to this higher realm of reality. But I think we have a symbiotic relationship. And it's one out of two choices. You can have a symbiotic relationship with good and God, Jesus, or Islam, or whatever religion. You can choose the path of good, the commandments. Or you can have a symbiotic relationship with the demonic world, which is the Illuminati satanic practices they do in Hollywood and witchcraft all over the world. The Illuminati, the Zionists, and these controllers. And there's satanic rituals like 911 and Sandy Hook. So we all have to be connected to the higher realm. And we can choose to use our brains and believe in God and try to do good to our fellow man, treat others as you want to be treated. Or we can be takers and wolves and have a symbiotic relationship with the demonic forces. Just my theorizing on what I'm saying. So anyways, in this book, he says, demons take civilized human beings and change them into the perverted evil of the spirit world. That isn't just my imagination. I've been studying this stuff, and I'm going to study it more and read these books I'm showing you and many more. And I have, as you can see here, back when I read this, I wasn't putting tabs in, so I probably got to go read through it again. But I'm well versed and knowledgeable about hypnotism. Actually, after I read a book by Ron Hubbard, I forget the name of that book, I had this canny ability to be able to hypnotize people. I'd be in a bar on a business trip somewhere and having a beer, and I'd talk to people and tell them I was able to hypnotize people and regress them to their childhood age and make them remember their little nickname when they were 3 or 4, or where they were when they were 7 at Valentine's Day in school. And I would count to 7, and say, relax and fall asleep. And I always had a tape recorder, and I tape recorded this. And I would take them back. I could do it at will. It was a crazy thing. Ron L. Hubbard, what was the name of his book? Dianetics. I read that. That's when when I worked at a aerospace company for 10 years. They had sent me up to Canada to teach water. The Canadian Air Force people to troubleshoot the electronics on the F-18 jet. I have a degree in electronic technology. And on one of the city streets in Alberta, I was invited to take this psychological test where I had to fill in all these answers and all that. And then it prints out a chart, and the guy says to me, "Wow, you got quite a brain." And he gave me a free Dianetics book. And I read it through. It's a big thick book like this. And I was able to hypnotize people fluidly, and I had a tape recorder. I always did it ethically, and I let people hear it, and they would hear themselves talk just like when they were 6 and 7. It was crazy. Hypnotism. So anyways, one day when sitting alone at home, I decided I wanted to regress myself. And I tried it, and all I gave myself was a headache, but I lost my ability to hypnotize other people. Isn't that interesting? But I've read this, and I'll read it again. It tells you how to do it. I'm reminded of the David Icke story, if you know David Icke. He wrote a lot of books. And he was on stage, or he knows a story about a magician or a hypnotist who was on stage. And he had a gold watch in his hand. And on the stage was a man and his daughter. And the magician or the hypnotist stood behind the girl, with his hand behind the girl's back. Like my hand is behind my back. And the man is standing there under hypnotic trance. And the hypnotist says, "Your daughter is not here. And what is in my hand?" And the man looked straight through his daughter's body and said, "There's a gold watch in your hand." So there's something to this hypnotism. My point here is with this stuff they do on TV and these shows, halftimes, Grammys, and football, and all this other satanic symbolism, 911, Sandy Hook, all this stuff, it's a sort of a mind control. These people are skilled at this that are ruling our world. Another book I want to go over some more. I have another Henry Ford book. You're not going to believe it. Sometimes I hate to even discuss this stuff. But the Jewish degradation of American baseball. Talks about how the Jewish people, the Zionist ones, remember, who were coming over from Russia, Poland, Eastern Europe, the Yiddish ones, the Ashkenazis, who are into the occult, and taking over companies and businesses and enterprises like baseball in a vicious manner, taking control like mafia organizations. I'll just read the first line. Henry Ford's book now, automaker. And he bought the newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, as you can see here. So I need to read this book. I have many books I haven't even read yet. Every non-Jewish baseball manager in the United States lives between two fears, that they are both describable in biblical terms. The fear of the Jews, and the first fear concerns what the Jews are doing to baseball. The second fear concerns what the Jew would do to the manager if he complains about it. These people did hostile takeovers of New York and this country back then in after 1917 revolution, where the Bolsheviks went in there and killed 100 million goyim in Russia, took over the whole country. And thousands of hundreds of thousands maybe of these Ukrainian, Russian, Poland, Ashkenazi Jews came to the United States via New York. Predominantly, they weren't really letting anybody else immigrate in at that time. And they were very arrogant, and they were taking over everything. And if you read the descriptions, it was a very horrible state of affairs. And as they had no compulsion, no religion to stop them from taking over everything, even if they had to murder people, use magic, hypnotism. What did they know? And then the study of Hermetic philosophy, the ancient Egypt and Greece, the Kabbalah. I've gone over this subject. I have many of the books. I'm going to go over some more. It's just giving you some idea of what's in the future. Chapter 4, I'm just randomly opening this up. Under and back of the universe of time, space, and change is ever to be found the substantial reality, the fundamental truth, the Kabbalion. Substance means that which underlies all outward manifestations, the essence, the essential reality, the thing itself. Substantial means actually existing, being this essential element, being real. Reality means the state of being real. True, enduring, valid, fixed, permanent, actual. So it goes into the magic and all that. Cycles, astrology. Just giving you an idea. Then we got one tarot divination by the evilest man called alive, who bragged about killing and having pedophilia sex with children. And in New York City in a penthouse having orgies and all that, practicing all kinds of things. So the tarot divination. And number 13, I'll just look at this one thing from Aleister Crowley. And his name is 666 and the 666 calculator, the mark of the beast. He bragged about his exploits with children. The Lord of the winds and the breezes, the King of the spirits of air, Knights of swords, the winged warrior, remember the wing thing we just saw? With crowned wings, helmet, mounted on a brown steed. His general equipment is that of the Knight of Wands, magic wands, and he wears as a crest a winged six-pointed star. That sounds pretty ominous. Similar to those representative of the heads of Castor and the Pollux of Discorsi, the twins of Gemini, a part of which constellation is including of his rule. He holds a drawn sword and the sigle of his scale upon its pommel. Beneath his horse's feet are dark driving stratus clouds. I'm just showing you, see all the Masonic, Freemasonry, Illuminati, Satanism symbolism? Look on a dollar bill. See the triangle in the eye? A little more. Just thought I would entertain you with some of this stuff that I still have to research. Some of it I have. Traders and carpetbaggers in the Promised Land. This book presents a journal record of the conspirators both within and without Israel, who have through greed and political ambition negated the biblical promise of the nation. The Kissinger connection, the Council of Foreign Relations connection, the Bush connection, the Clinton connection, the Vatican connection, the PLO connection, the Mormon connection, the UN connection, the Rabbi assassination connection. Everything we've been talking about. And lastly, for this little tidbit of the show, Aleister Crowley's The Book of the Law. Apparently, he was in communicato with some demonic or interdimensional being, demonic I believe. Well, let's just look at it briefly. A Book of the Law, with a facsimile of the manuscript as received by Aleister Crowley, and Rose Edith Crowley on April 9th, 10th, and 11th, 1904. The Order de Templi Orientis, York Beach, Boston. Just want to let you know that, and look at the symbolism here. Again, Illuminati, Freemasonic, Rosicrucian, Zionist. See the sun's rays, the pyramid. The Knights of Malta, a little cross in there. Down below. Okay, reading here. The author called himself Aiwass. And this Aiwass character, if you look it up, looks like a gray alien. This was the being that Aleister Crowley was incommunicato with, who gave him the book of the law, which apparently allowed him, the religious law, to have all those crazy things he bragged about: sex with children, killing children, group orgies in New York, bringing forth demonic beings. Aleister Crowley. But listen to what he says, not me. The author called himself Aiwass and claimed to be the minister of Hor-Pa-Keret. I probably don't want to say it correctly. I don't want to do an incantation and have a demonic being pop up. No humor there. That is a messenger from the forces ruling this earth. How could he prove that he was in fact a being of a kind superior to any of the human race? What I'm trying to say is, with these Zionist, Illuminati, Freemasonic, all these occultists into this stuff, Helenita Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, the New Age material, getting information from the masters, it might behoove we people to wake up. What are your children studying? What are they into? Your sister, your cousin? Are they buying this stuff? Entitled to speak with authority, this Aiwassi character who looked like a gray alien. Evidently, he must show knowledge and power so that no man has ever known to possess. I just highlighted a few things when I previewed this. Some events which had yet taken place, such as no human being could possibly be aware of them. So we've had prophets in the Bible and on monuments and stone and people throughout history. Edgar Casey. So this is nothing new. So people tell me the reason I'm bringing all this up with these books is I still get comments from people going, there's no God, there's no devil, we don't have any souls. And there's so much material here of doctors talking to children after they die who describe the event. Out-of-body experiences, all this stuff. No one can read it without being stricken to the very core of his being, this book. The more than human power of Aiwass is shown by the influence of his master. And again, I'm just reading a little couple sentences so you can get the gist of it. I don't really recommend getting this book. This idea is for literary convenience, symbolized by the Egyptian goddess Nut. And if you've ever seen any Egyptian hieroglyphics, you know they got this Egyptian goddess who's bent over like the sky, and on the bottom lays a male goddess with the erect unit, and she's on top of it. Nut. A woman bending over the arch of the night sky, and Hadit is symbolized as the winged globe of the heart of Nut. The winged globe is everywhere in all the satanic stuff on even American Idol, the big all-seeing eye, Grammys and Katy Perry, Madonna, they have the wings and the eye and all this stuff. They say every man and every woman is a star. Star in heaven. Each one of us has thus a universe of his own. This is what they teach. We're all gods. And of course, in the Ten Commandments, the first commandment from God, on the 2 tablets, is there's only one God, me. So God says. There shall only be one God. In our present stage, the object that you see is never the same as the one that I see. Okay, the law of Thelma. Here's the book of the law. Get this. This is what they think. This is why they can kill people, pedophilia, child sacrifice, to appease these, please these, appease these, whatever. Whether to appease or please these entities, demonic beings on the other side. Here's the book of the law. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Do whatever you want is the whole of the law, not the 10 Commandments. Law is the law. Love is the law, and love under will, whatever that means. Love is the law, and love under will. And the third one sentence, there is no law beyond do what thou wilt. So the law is do whatever you want to make you happy. Now just imagine if these demonic beings, these Satanists, being possessed, politicians we've had in office on stage, seemingly possessed, said to be possessed, part reptilian or something, because this Ayahuasca character looked like a gray alien. Just making a point. I study everything. The technical methods of achieving this are to be studied in magic or acquired by personal instruction from the Master Theron and his appointed assistants. So if you want to learn how to do this, you got to study magic. The third chapter of the book is difficult to understand and may be repugnant to many people born before the date of the book, 1904. Here we go. Back to the Egyptians. The New Age. Page 16. Isis, the mother when the universe was conceived, as simple nourishment drawn directly from her, this period is marked by matriarchal government. That's women running the government. Next, beginning 500 BC, Osiris, the father, when the universe was imagined as catastrophic, love, death, resurrection, as the method of which experience was built up. This corresponds to patriarchal system. That's where the men run the country. Now Horus, the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, the child in which we come to perceive events as a continual growth partaking in its elements of both these methods, not to be overdone by circumstance. So Horus on the all-seeing eye dollar bill is apparently androgynous, male and female. Horus, the child in which we come to perceive events as the continued growth partaking in elements of both these methods, matriarchal or patriarchal, male and female. And remember, the devil, Baal, demon, is always pictured with horns, with a goat's head, women's breast, a male torso, and goat's feet. Androgynous. See how it ties this into the religion of transgender, bisexuality, adultery, homosexuality. It's all out of these satanic do as thou wilt religion that Aleister Crowley practiced, which included killing and sex with young children that he bragged about. Look it up. He was known as the evilest man alive. So my point is people that I've been going on this book, in these 3 videos on 66, the Zionism and the Jew who moved from America to go live over there are telling us that story I told you, and the protocols of Zion we went over. And so we're discussing the religion of these people. Not too good. This god Horus has a technical title, Huru-Ra-Ha. Ra was one of the Egyptian gods. A combination of twin gods, Ra-Hu-Quit or Hu-Pa-Krat. I don't want to say these correctly to get any kind of incantation going. The meaning of this doctrine must be studied in magic. He is symbolized as a hawk-headed god enthroned. And we've all seen the hawk-headed god on the Egyptian hieroglyphics. If you haven't seen it, just type in Egyptian hieroglyphics images, and you will see the god with the bird head. He rules the present period of 2,000 years, beginning in 1904. Everywhere his government is taking root. Did you just hear what I said? This new hawk-headed being hawk-headed God. He rules the present period of 2,000 years, beginning in 1904. So for 100 years, this new government is taking root. This new age, this new world order. The law of one, do whatever you want. Like George Bush said, out of chaos will come the new world order. The rule of law. And that means whatever laws they make, the only freedom you're going to have is what the law says you can do, which may be nothing, because that's the law. All right. Here we go. Well, a little bit more I did here. I got a little marker here, as you see. Page 69, the Book of the Law. This book was dedicated to me on April 9th, 10th, 8, 9, and 10, 1904. The beginning of this new age, which is taking root. So there is a religion behind all this Zionism and New World Order and Illuminati and Freemasonic lodges. And we will see that more in my videos. It becomes clearer. By Ayahuasca. And if you look up Aleister Crowley and the being in images, you will see images of Ayahuasca. He looks like a gray alien. I've shown them in previous videos. A being whose nature I do not fully understand, but who described himself as the minister of Hu-Parakrat, the Lord of Silence. The contents of the book prove but to strict scientific demonstration that he possesses knowledge and power quite beyond anything that has been hereto associated with human faculties. The book announces a new law for mankind. A little more highlighted. Its conscious adoption, in its proper sense, is the sole cure for the political, social, and racial unrest which has brought about the World War and the catastrophe in Russia, that I keep talking about, and threatened attitude of China, India, and Islam. This is 1904, see? All that stuff didn't happen. That's happened since then. I summon, therefore, listen to this, by the power and authority entrusted to me, Aleister Crowley says this, every great spirit and mind now on this planet incarnate to take effective hold of this transcendent force and apply it to the advancement of the welfare of the human race. But do as thou wilt is the law, and it's all satanic. For as the experience of these 1 in 20 years has shown too terribly, this book cannot be ignored. Man must obtain, therefore, the wine of ecstasy. I don't even want to read this, so I'm not doing an incantation. You can read it. Yikaruski. That's all I gotta say. Obviously Egyptian here, hieroglyphics, which is in the Freemasonic books, the Illuminati, the Satan books, churches, witches. And apparently when Aleister Crowley was communicating with this interdimensional being, they do have the printed text here that I showed you of the Book of the Law, but he took these notes. He's got the notes of his meditation communication with the interdimensional beings. I really can't read his handwriting very well, but apparently in the first part of the book here, all the text is there. It says here, there is a light before thine eyes, O prophet, a light undesired and most desired. I am uplifted in thy heart, and the kisses of the stars rained hard upon thy body. Thou art exhaust all the voluptuous fullness of the inspiration. The expiration is sweeter than death, more rapid and laughterful than the caress of hell's own worm. Laughterful than a caress from hell's own worm. Well, enough of that. So I think I'll finish this video now, and next time I do my next video, we'll continue on with the Protocols of Zion. And again, this is number 15 we have to start on next, which is definitely interesting. It has secret societies. The Gentiles are so stupid, That's what it says there. Gentiles are stupid. Secret societies. What else does it say here? Gentiles are cattle. We demand submission. You can see where I stopped reading. It's not highlighted. 15. We shall be cruel. I guess if you're a masochist, you might like Protocol 15. We shall be cruel. Our absolutism, I can't say it, will be all things be logically consecutive, and therefore in each one of its decrees, our supreme will must be respected and unquestionably fulfilled. It will ignore all murmurs, all discontents of every kind, and will destroy to the root every kind of manifestation in them and act by punishment of exemplary character. We shall abolish the right of appeal. I don't need to go on. Go on the internet, print it out, read it all for yourself, highlight it. It's enough to make you ill. Rick Miracle reporting.